Welcome to the Applications of Genetics lecture over gel electrophoresis. Gel electrophoresis is the process of separating fragments of DNA into bands based on size. And the purpose of this is to compare DNA samples from different people. So whether that be a sample from crime scene evidence to your suspects, or even you can use it to compare if you're related to somebody else. The way it works is that there's electric volts applied to a gel that causes the negative DNA fragments to move towards the positive end of the gel. And so what happens is you take the DNA sample and you add what we call restriction enzymes, which cut the DNA at very specific spots. And so you're going to end up with DNA with smaller segments of different various sizes. You're then going to load the DNA sample into what we call a well, which is a little hole inside this gel-like material similar to the consistency of Jell-O. You're going to put the samples that you're trying to compare, one in each well. So if you have a crime scene evidence here and then you have a couple of suspects, you'll load the suspects individually into their own well. And then the gel floats in a buffer solution within this chamber. And there's two electrodes in the chamber. There's a negative electrode and a positive electrode, causing a positive and negative charge. Now DNA is negatively charged naturally. And so when it's placed towards the negative probe, it's going to move away from the negative side and go towards the positive side, just like you would with magnets, right? You don't want two negatives close to each other. And so it's going to slowly cause those pieces to move. The smaller DNA fragments are going to move faster because they can fit through that weave a lot quicker than the others. And then larger DNA fragments are going to end up moving a lot slower. And so you end up with a result like this, where you have bands of different sizes of DNA. And in the end, you're going to compare these bands to one another. So here's a good example. Here I have a crime scene sample, and this is what was found at the crime scene, the DNA. And then I have three suspects. Now, the suspects are all going to have different band patterns because they all have different DNA. And so in this case, if you look at the crime scene sample, it doesn't match any of these suspects. So none of these people would have left the DNA that they found at this crime scene. But let's take a look at this one. Here's the blood stain that we found at the crime scene, and then our different suspects. Once again, they're all going to have different DNA patterns because they all have different DNA. But then you notice here that John, his pattern is exactly the same as the pattern in the blood stain. And so this shows that John's DNA matches the DNA found at the blood at the crime scene, and so he is the culprit or the person who left that blood sample. So from here, you're going to watch the Amoeba Sisters video to show the very detailed explanation of gel electrophoresis, and then you're going to complete a quick gel electrophoresis lab.